Welcome to Your Money. I'm Christine Romans. Allie is on assignment today. What a week. The bailout debate reaching a fever pitch from Wall Street to Capitol Hill to Main Street. But in the minds of many Americans, this debate is far from over. Some say a government bailout is a good idea. Others absolutely hate it. Either way, it's a debate Americans have been and continue to be passionate about. To articulate two very different views on the bailout story, we invited back Stephen Lieb, president of Lieb Capital Management, and Peter Schiff, president of Euro Pacific Capital and author of the new book, The Little Book of Bull Moves in Bear Markets. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Christine.
The bailout. I've been told that we need it. We need it because if we don't have it, we don't know what kind of horrific economy we face. You disagree?
I disagree. And remember, the people who are telling us that we need these bailouts are the same people that were telling us the economy was in great shape just a few months ago or a few years ago. You know, unfortunately, and I watched that debate the other day, the vice presidential debate, and both of these candidates are blaming these problems on Wall Street greed, on predatory lending, on lack of regulation. But the reality is, all of this happened. Wall Street, the mortgage community, they were just playing the hand the government dealt them. This is the government problem. It was the most irresponsible monetary policy in U.S. history under Greenspan. It was the moral hazards of Fannie and Freddie. It was our tax code that encouraged reckless gambling on real estate.
But the house is on fire now.
Right. Yes,
we have
exactly.
to put the fire out.
Christine, that's another debate. Who caused it? I mean, there were a lot of people that caused it, and I certainly don't disagree with Peter when he says the government was part of the cause. But right now, the House is on fire, and that has happened. And just to give you one consequence of how serious this situation could be, take the fertilizer stocks. I mean, I'm talking real micro stuff here. Yesterday, or earlier this week, fertilizer companies fell 30 and 40%. You know why they fell that much? Not because demand for food is falling off a cliff. There's 2 billion people in this world that are living on $2 a day and near starvation. The reason fertilizers fell that much is people fear farmers can't get credit to grow their crop. And that means if we don't do something quick, you could have mass starvation, not just in this country, all over the globe.
Steve, I agree with you. The house is on fire, but the government's just going to pour gasoline on it. If we want the fire to go out, we need to let the free market work.
No, the free market right now, and this is what the stock market is telling us, which is probably as free as you possibly can get in this world today, is that if we don't do something, farmers won't be able to grow their crops, and the world will starve.
But the government isn't going to help farmers grow their crops. All they have is a printing press.
There are a lot of people who don't believe in the doomsday. They don't know what this doomsday scenario is everyone's so worried about. Alice Rivlin, the former vice chair of the Fed, she put it very eloquently this week. She said, look, this is a lot like anticipating a nuclear war. You don't know what the chances are, but you do everything you can to avoid it. Shouldn't it be the responsibility of the federal government to make sure that even though it might have caused the problems, we have to mitigate disasters for Americans?
It's not their responsibility, not legally, and they can't do anything about it. The government doesn't provide credit, they provide inflation.
No.
Credit comes from savings.
Peter,
you've got to start saving.
Let me make one point. Peter talks against 2 points. One, when we thought the bailout was in jeopardy, the market dropped $1 trillion, more than the value of the bailout. The other thing I'm very fearful of, and this I agree with Peter, I don't like the government either, but I would rather give the government a little control now rather than complete control later on. Just a little history lesson. Let me just finish a second, Peter.
Wait, let him finish.
Peter, please let me just finish, because I'm not really disagreeing with you. What I don't want to see happen is an unemployment fall to 25%, and we paved the way for another FDR. Except this time we may not be so lucky. We may not get FDR. We may get a guy like Lindbergh who wants to be dictator. And that's the kind of thing that Alice Rivlin talks about. That's the doomsday scenario where the government totally seizes control. Little control now in exchange for massive control later.
This week there was this emergency conference call among corporate treasurers who got on this call to talk about how banks were holding on to the money. They weren't letting them borrow so that they could do things like buy raw materials, so they could do things like pay their payroll. How do you, if we just let the market work it out, what happens to companies and people?
It's not that the banks are holding on to the money. The money's not there anymore because they've blown their capital on bad loans. Remember, we can only loan out money that somebody saves. And if we blow our stock of savings, there's no more credit. That's the problem. And the government can't replace the credit with a printing press. And the real problem is going to be with this bailout. It's not going to work. The situation is going to get worse. The stock market's going to keep falling. Real estate prices are going to keep falling. And we're going to get a bigger bailout. And the government's going to take more power. And they're going to create more damage.
however much gut power the government needs to control, and I don't even disagree with Peter, this may not be enough. However much power the government takes right now, however much money they have to put in the system, is much more preferable than letting the government have complete control over our economy. Peter, I don't want to be saluting a dictator in this country, but that's what you're advocating. That's what you're advocating.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Stick around because you're coming back right after this break. Wait until you see what was said about the economy.
Our financial institutions are strong. Our investment banks are strong. Our banks are strong.
That was then a surprising look back at what we were told about the economy before the Wall Street crisis.